What's up, everybody? Hope y'all are doing good. So, y'all, the other day I was kind of thinking back on parts of my life. I like to do that a lot. I like to reminisce. I like to go down memory lane, even if it's bad memories. I just enjoy going back into the past, and sometimes that's not a healthy thing, and sometimes it really can kind of make my mental state go south. But for the most part, I like to look back on some of the things I've learned and kind of how I've grown as a person. And it really hit me the other day. I look back to when I was a teenager and when I was in my early 20s, and I came out when I was 17. And so from like the ages of 16ish, 17ish, to about 25 when I moved away and kind of started my life and figuring out who I was. During those years, I absolutely hated who I was. I absolutely hated being gay. I kind of just had given up on trying to change it. But bottom line, I used to wish I was straight so bad. I used to get jealous, absolutely so jealous of straight couples and their lives. I thought being straight was just the key, in my life for me to be happy. I just it's almost like I sit and think if I was straight, my life would be better. I would be happier. Things would be going so much smoother. I would feel normal. I would be normal. I would be accepted and loved a lot more than what I am now. Because, my family did not take it well when they found out that I was gay at 17 years old. So from like the ages of 16ish, 17, the age of 16 was when I really accepted it and kind of just quit trying to change it and just moved on with my life. So when I was about 16 and 17, all the way up until the age of 25, because when I was 25 years old, that's when I finally, I moved away from South Carolina. I had never left before in my life. I'd never lived anywhere else, never had even been out of the South. I moved off to a different part of the country in a big city. And during those years that I was out there, I really discovered a lot about myself and who I am and what I want in life. And I was really I was able to do a lot of self-reflection and begin to accept myself and love myself. But from those ages, when I was in South Carolina, when I was younger, I absolutely hated myself. I hated who I was so bad. I used to sit and just think to myself, why me? Why did I have to end up gay? Because my family, I loved my family so much growing up. And I still do and always will, of course. And we're doing much, much better now. We've really moved past a lot in the last 12, 13 years. But I used to sit and think, if I was straight, everything would be okay right now. And that was my mindset. That was my mentality for a long time. And having such a negative mentality like that about who I was as a person, that led to so many problems that really were unnecessary, but were a great learning experience. Kind of hating myself so much for all those years led to a lot of substance abuse, a lot of addictions, just to kind of numb out how I was feeling. It led me to kind of get into bad relationships, just because I would meet someone and they would show interest in me, and I guess I just wanted to be loved so bad that I would kind of gravitate and go towards anyone that I perceived cared about me. And in reality, they did not. Those relationships turned out to be a fucking disaster. They were a mess. They were toxic. And, they did not help me out at all. So, during that time, things were rough. And I used to despise myself because of my sexuality. Because I used to look around, y'all, at my family and the people that I went to school with. I found, my parents found out when I was in high school later on, and especially, it's almost like when I kind of graduated high school in my college years, and people, the people that I had went to school with were getting married, were starting their own families. That's when it really hit me that, I just felt very lonely. I wanted to be like them, but at the same time, I knew deep down that that was not going to happen because there was nothing I could do about it. Yes, I could have met a girl. I could have lied to her face, and and I'm sure she probably would have known, because usually you can definitely pick up when a guy's gay, no matter how straight he tries to act and wants people to believe. You usually can pick it up. But who knows? I could have met a girl that ignored it. She still loved me, wanted to be with me. We could have got married. We could have had kids, blah, blah, blah. And I could have led her on and played her for a fool. But I chose not to do that, even though I could. And I didn't want to drag anyone else down with me. I did not want to marry someone that I did not love, someone that I knew long term would not work out, and to have children that, that have to go through a divorce. I never willingly wanted to do that. So, I managed to just stay by myself and, just continue to date men and just try to ignore how I was feeling and try to ignore how my family was feeling, etc. And just try to live my life the best I could. But deep down, I used to want to be straight so bad. I've always had a good spiritual life. So, of course, I tried praying that it happens. And, over time, I gave up on that because that just was not working. But, later on in my life, y'all, whenever I was 25 years old, I met my first husband, and he lived out in Springfield, Missouri, which was a good 12, 13 hours from the mountains of South Carolina, where I was born, raised, and was living at the time. We met, and I had never left the South. So the fact that I moved all the way out there somewhere, I had only been like twice. We talked every day on the phone, FaceTime, we text, and, we got along great. We had a wonderful relationship. But, something nudged me, y'all, in here that said, you need to go. And so I listened for the first time in my life. I listened to my intuition. I listened to my gut feelings, and I did something for myself. And, moving out there absolutely changed my perspective on life. I was such a hardcore conservative when I lived, before I moved away, when I had only ever been in South Carolina, because, y'all, I really knew no different. The only different things I ever heard was on TV, and half the time, my family watches Fox News, so of course they're gonna make other places in the United States that I guess are more liberal make them look bad, make them look crazy. So that was my view on everything outside of South Carolina, pretty much. But when I got out there and realized the world is not as bad as the TV and the media and what you see on Facebook and shit is nowhere near as bad as they try to make it out to be. And try to make everything is so biased, and it's just ridiculous. So, going out there, it really changed my perspective on people, on life. It changed my perspective on religion, on just about and everything that you could think of. And especially the best thing it changed was the perspective I had of myself. I realized that, I am a valuable person. I should be loved for exactly who I am. And being away from the environment that I was in, being by myself and around people that didn't feel negative, I guess, towards gay people or the gay community, it really gave me a chance to settle in myself and to be okay with myself and learn to respect and love myself. Because, when we split up, that was such a hard time for me that it absolutely broke my heart, because it just happened. It was very unexpected, very sudden. But, I had to move on. I had to deal with it. I had to keep going. So, of course, I moved back to South Carolina to be with my family, because I had not seen them in a few years. And it's just amazing, y'all, the difference in me from before I left to when I came back, because I was so much more of an open-minded person. I was a lot more liberal and just a lot more open to new ideas, to people that were different than me. And I just no longer held that viewpoint about myself that being gay was bad, y'all, because I look at my life and I try to look at it from a different mindset, that if I was straight, I would have never been able to get away and to really grow much as a person. Because if I was straight, I would have never left South Carolina. I would have married probably my high school sweetheart straight out of high school and started just, go get a job somewhere and just start having children. And, I sit and think, me being gay really allowed me to take an opportunity to grow tremendously and to be able to get out and travel and see the world and meet all kinds of new people. And if I was straight, none of that would have ever happened. I would have never traveled. I would have never really met anybody new except for the people that were in my hometown. I never would have gained any new perspectives. I would have never grown as a person. I would have just remained in my shell. So, the fact that I was able to leave like that and to see the world, that happened because of my sexuality and that part of me. So, that really made me change my mind. And even to today, I am so thankful. I am thankful to God that I was made differently, because I was able to do things that I never ever would have done if I would have been like everyone else in my life. And you know, I love the people in my life, my family. I love them tremendously. I don't look down on them. You know, we get along great. I love my parents to death. You know, we have grown. Our relationship has transformed. It has grown. It has become so much more positive than what it used to be. And for that, I am so, so thankful. They accept me, I accept them. We've learned to kind of work through our differences, and we've come to a place in our lives to where we openly love each other, we openly accept each other. And you know, we feel a lot of gratitude for each other. I'm thankful to have my parents alive and well and in my life, and for the way I grew up, you know, in a very stable home, financially stable. I saw such a great example of marriage. My parents, you know, I never went through divorce, and my parents always loved each other, and they put me and my brother first before anything else. And you know, it's such a blessing, and it's, you know, it's something that I will never ever take for granted. But it's just, I'm in a place now in my life, y'all, where I'm so much more accepting and so much more loving of myself. And when you become that way towards yourself, y'all, you become that way towards others. You're not as more, I don't know, you're not as closed-minded whenever you learn to love and accept yourself. And you don't feel like, I don't feel a lot of jealousy towards people anymore, ever since I've kind of come to a place in my life where, you know, I really truly love myself, because I feel a lot of gratitude for who I am and from where I'm at. So y'all, if you're going through anything in your life, it doesn't even have to be your sexuality, but if you're going through something in your life where you feel like you're hating yourself or you're wishing things were different, just give it time, because I'm telling you, as your life goes on, as you move on, you will look back and you will see why you went through something. You will see the lessons you learned, and you will be able to look at it in a different manner than what you are now. Because, you know, a lot of times when you're going through stuff, you're blind to the future. You think this is the end, you know, I'm stuck here forever. And that is absolutely not the case. That is not true at all. So give it some time, y'all, and be patient with your situations. Be patient with yourself. You know, and just love yourself, and just make sure you give yourself what you need in order to be happy and to heal. So guys, I really hope y'all get something out of this video. Sorry for rambling on. That's such a topic I get passionate about, and I could just talk for hours on that. So guys, thank y'all so much for watching my video. I'll be back in a couple days with something else. Y'all have a wonderful day. It is hot as hell down south right now. So if you guys are down south, you know what I'm talking about, and the rest of y'all that are different parts of the country, if y'all are experiencing some cooler weather, you know, good for you, because it can be pretty miserable down here sometimes. So guys, y'all have a good week, and I will see you soon. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and you guys have a blessed day. Bye.